Live.
Live now?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, dude. Got the cold start. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Harambe's Heroes podcast, your source of premium Age of Sigmar content. So, we'll kind of get right into it. We got the guest on. He's a recurring guest on the show. It is the winner of the Lone Star Open last weekend. It is Mr. Zachary Kennedy. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah. He said the thing. My name is Zach. Played Seraphon in Dallas last weekend. Ended up taking it. Although Gavin was also 5-0 with his Gloomspite gets.
Yeah, not as important as Seraphon. Seraphon, much weaker army. So, yeah, this is Zach. There's a great opening. Lines up with that premium content. Brian, how did your weekend go?
I mean, y'all were there. I went 5-0, bro. What am I going to do about that? Nah, I messed up, and we'll get to it. But I made a mistake that cost me a game. But I had a great weekend overall. Overall, it was a great tournament. Matt and those guys did great. We really appreciate them, getting all that done. I think the terrain was pretty cool. So I think the tables, everything looked good. So just an overall good tournament. It was a good weekend. Got to see the people we haven't seen I haven't seen in a while. We're not all on the Worlds team, so I don't get to see them like every Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. I really liked how he separated painting from the battle track a lot. I'd like to see that standardized a lot more at future tournaments.
Oh yeah,
the top 20 cut, and then did a second day judging. So it really gave an outlet for those people who have that as something they prioritize. And maybe instead of playing or in addition to playing, some people like to do everything. So that was cool to see that outlook there. Venue was good. I think it probably needs to expand next year. In hindsight, we maxed that hall out, and there's definitely demand to get bigger. So I would like to see the tournament grow, and maybe the venue grow as well. That'd be cool. A couple of things, but I guess we'll kind of get into our games and how they went and stuff. I'm sure everybody is riveted and ready to be told the stories of how Gloomspite goes 5-0. It's a doozy, let me tell you. But who wants to go? Who wants to go first, dude?
I think Evan's games day one need to take priority. That was some wild games.
All right, yeah. So game one, I went against. And by the way, I apologize. I don't remember anyone's names as far as who I play. I'm just awful with names, so sorry in advance. So game one, I fought a Be'lakor list in Legion of the First Prince, and it had Be'lakor, 2 Bloodthirsters. I don't remember which 2 there are, and then a Great Unclean one, and just Pinks and Fleshhounds. And so I kind of knew what the list was going for. Like, it was meant to shut down my army, kind of stall me out, and so that he can summon more stuff throughout the game, and then Be'lakor can just kind of sit back and harass me. So, and it really stacked a lot of ward saves too. He was going through the list, telling me about the ward saves that everything has, the wound pass offs that Be'lakor has, and the Great Unclean one having the 5-up ward aura. And then he hadn't played Bone Splitters before, at least from what he told me. And so he's like, "Well, so what does your army do?" And I said, "Well, all my attacks ignore your ward saves. You don't get to make them." And it was really funny interaction because he called bullshit, and then he didn't like. I knew he was just like, "You gotta be kidding me," kind of thing. So I showed him the book, and we kind of went. There was a kind of like a rules question we had about Be'lakor passing off the wounds, and then does the ward save still happen? And so we ended up having a pretty interesting game. My one Wargog, I mean, really, my army didn't really. Throughout all the games, the main thing was the Wargogs. No one gives a shit about anything else in the army. It was just the Wargogs kind of doing the thing. And my first Wargog, which has a 4-up ward save, blew himself up, did like 18 mortals to himself, and then didn't do any damage. And then the second one which was a great start to it. And then the second one ended up staring down a bloodthirster. So I was like, all right, well that evens out, I guess. And then we kind of just ran into each other. The pigs tied down Bellicor and were just dumping damage into him, and I was just holding on to the objectives. And he Bellicored my rogue idol, which I was perfectly fine with. And I noticed all his stuff. He didn't really have shooting, so he couldn't go after my wargogs. So I ended up just kind of surrounding each wargog with a unit of savage orcs, and just waited each turn. And I ended up winning the roll off, killing Bellicor, and then killed like 3 more units killed 2 more units by staring at him, and then I was able to kill a 3rd unit. And really, all he had left was the Great Unclean One and like some pinks that he summoned. So as we kept going, the game just really stalled out for him. He wasn't able to keep generating more units and stuff, and that really hurt him.
A Great Unclean One standing there with 3 wargogs like scratching their face. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It was intense too, because the rogue idol ran into one of the bloodthirsters, and the Great Unclean One did his like vomit attack and did 4 damage, and I already had 5 damage on the rogue idol. Well, then he did his stomp thing, and he also did another, was it 4 mortals or something like that, and I didn't make any of it. So my rogue idol went from like being able to reasonably take them all out to just, oh, I'm in trouble now. And we ended up having it where his fatal mistake was that he didn't roar at my rogue idol. Instead, he chose to Titanic Duel it with a bloodthirster that had 1 wound left. So, and it was my activation first. So I ended up just swinging into it and killing him. So that was kind of, after that happened, we kind of talked it out.
Just a shout out to your opponent. Your opponent's name for Emblem was Doug Steele.
Oh yeah, Doug.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool because him and his friend were from Colorado, and I'm sorry, he's from Colorado. His friend's from Dallas, and he was visiting for this tournament. So hopefully, I don't think I caught your name, but friend of Doug, definitely get into Age of Sigmar. I know you're a 40k player, and you should feel bad. So that's it.
Doug.
I did like probably 25 to 30 mortals with the stairs. So,
moderate amount. Yeah. My game was against Octavia Grossi, round 1. She was playing the No Retreat Zinch, Disciples of Zinch army, Host of Placidus, I think it's called, with Kairos and some pinks, and kind of a control list. I wanted to do magic damage, and unfortunately, with the mission and the way that like the Destiny dice rolled out, she didn't roll any 6s, and then the mission was Savage Gains, so she didn't have an ability to kill Kragnos, perhaps a recurring theme in this tournament, and Kragnos got to her home objective. So once he gets there, he doesn't move, and I scored a lot of points. Great game. Lots of interesting interactions with that army. It's just the Gloomspite gets with Kragnos shuts down a lot of what she wants to do with her game plan. So I was able to take it like 47 to 28 or something. Good game. We both stayed in the game. I kind of like avoided her army as she shifted to the side and took the rest of the board. So good game. It was fun to play you, Octavia, and looking forward to seeing you at tournaments in the future. That's me. Game 1, dude.
I'll go next so we can save Brian's game 1 for the last bit. My round 1, I pulled a fairly new guy on the scene, friend of Marco's, Tehran Huffman, playing Lumineth Realm Lords, and he was playing Sire, but he, instead of going with the typical Sentinel build, he went with 50 Wardens, Teclis, Severeth, and a Cathlar. And he also had the spell Portal and a Life Swarm, which ended up mattering a lot for him. We landed up across from each other. He only has 71 wounds in this list, but it regenerates a lot. he made me go first. I killed 10 wardens, Savage Gains on his objective. And then on his turn, he resurrected all 10 of them. So I did no damage turn 1. And then... and then he doubled me and took all the objectives. And then we had been talking a lot, so we were running low on time going into round 3. Just hanging out, really. And so I knew, because he was up on points, he had taken the objectives early. I knew I needed to make a really big play going into bottom of 3 just to go up real high, so I needed to take his back objective, but it was covered in 50 wardens and techless. So I juiced up 30 block of skinks, juiced up the Engine of the Gods, threw them forward, and really clutch was him failing his Darkness of the Soul roll on my Bastiladon. He rolled a 4. He needed a 6 or better just on 2 dice to stop it. But he rolled a 4, so I got to shoot his Cathalar and killed it. And between the engine and the 30 skinks, I killed and battle shocked almost all of his wardens off the board. And I had 6 skinks left towing his back objective, which overpowered Techless on the objective. And I had the Arcaso Tech sitting on the other side objective that was left, which he couldn't overpower model count-wise with what he had left over there. So that... And then we called it there. I was up pretty far because I took the 4-point objective. But then we rolled off just to see what would have happened and to talk about the rest of the game, and I won the roll-off. So that pretty effectively sealed the game entirely. But excellent opponent. He played it really well. It was a close game. I look forward to playing Tehran again.
All right, so it's my turn, huh?
Indeed.
All right, mistakes were made. So my game started out, I was against Taker Tribe, Mega Gargants on Sabbath King. So that's like a 98% win rate for that army. So he outdropped me. Obvious. I'm going to start kicking objectives. Started kicking objectives towards the middle, that kind of thing. So he kicked his to the middle and went and sat on the 3 in the middle and then passed the turn. So he scored a bunch of points and passed the turn. And I started unloading cannons. Basically, all I did in my hero phase, because I couldn't come off of my objective. I pushed Black Powder up on the right side and got him on the objective with the plan to kill his 3 man crushers. And then the first mistake I made was I didn't really pay attention to how I was dictating which cannon I was shooting with. Because, I just, usually it's like I'm going to shoot that one, then that one, then that one, then that one. But I started on the wrong side. I didn't declare which one I was shooting after the first one, which I need to get, better at. But I started from the right side, and I had his last man crusher, who was the only one sitting on the right side objective. And he's like, well, that cannon's out of range now. Even though I didn't declare which ones I had shot, I started from the right side. It was only fair that I just went down the line. So I lost those 2 points. And then we rolled. He took priority, and I fully expected him to take all 3 objectives and kick them into my deployment zone, and he didn't. So he put 2 megas right into Gorlock, who commenced to taking him some sandals for the weekend. Gorlock Black Powder snatched him some sandals, and then he died. But whatever, it just created a little roadblock on that right side, so I didn't have to deal with 3 megas in my face turn 1. I think Gorlock ended up chopping down the last of the man crushers. Maybe he didn't, maybe he did. I can't remember exactly. But the man crushers were done that turn, and 2 megas were tied up over there with Gorlock. So I was still relatively in a good position, and he didn't kick the objectives. He didn't continue to kick them into my deployment zone. So I was like, okay, if I have a good turn here, I can take a Mega Gargant or 2 off the table, and now he's lost the ability to kick the objectives into my backfield, and I actually have a catch-up mechanic. So I think I shot down only one Mega Guard at that turn, but I put like 12 wounds each on the other two because of what I could range it with. And then he won the turn again. And at that point, he was counting up points, and he was like, yeah, I don't think you can catch up. I was like, well, we're going to find out because we're going to play 5 battle rounds. We're going to find out if I can catch up. So on turn 4, he won the roll-off again. So he actually was able to get a giant, I think, close enough to score my 4 points that turn, and that's where he thought he was, going to run away with it. So he got my 4 points, and then on turn 4, I shot one Mega off. I got the other one down to 4 wounds. So I turned my and we had done the math, and he would have been like 1 point ahead of me. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to turn my Tyrant into a monster, and I'm going to charge that 4 wound Mega, and I'm going to kill him, and I'm going to get a monster point with the monster, and we're going to tie this game, and you can't score a battle attack next round. So I'll just win on that. And then I rolled. I rolled a 4. He said fail, and I didn't even think about it. I needed a 4. That's what I needed. I didn't even think about it. I picked the dice back up and I re-rolled it. And I was like, wait, but you weren't even paying attention. I was like, wait, I didn't even. He's like, I didn't. That 4 made it. He's like, yeah, but that 3 that you rolled didn't. I was like, okay. So that happened, and then it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. What's your grand strategy? Your table. Your grand strategy is either hold the line or it's Beastmaster. So you're dead. Mine is hold the line. I'm just going to win on that. So ended up tabling him, scoring it, got it to 35 to 36 or 34 to 36, somewhere in that area, and then added my grand strategy and went for the win. And then afterwards, Matt Taylor handled it great. I'm not frustrated with him. Came over after we were sitting there eating lunch, and he came over and he was like, I'm going to have to take the game from you. You forgot to put your grand strategy actually on your list. So the problem is I normally use Worst Roll Builder, and I was using the app because Gorlock Black Powder wasn't on Worst Roll Builder yet. So I couldn't figure out with that new app how to get the thing on there, but it was the same list I had been using. It was Hold the Line. I just forgot to put it on there. So I had that loss vacated, taken away from me. So started out 0-1 for the first time in a long time. I was pretty frustrated, but stuck it out, finished up, had a pretty good weekend. But I was pretty heated at that point, but let it go.
Yeah, it's always like it feels really bad to have resolutions to those kind of games, especially if you're not in direct communication with your opponent. Like if you're going behind your opponent to the TO, trying to get resolution to like a rule situation that you could just sit there and like talk out and communicate like with your opponent, like that alone would make that, it would probably take away a lot of the friction that happened like just right there. Like I know how reasonable Brian is, like there'll just be a conversation there, it'll be squashed right there. But like yeah, like waiting and then going behind your opponent to the TO and trying to get a resolution like that is definitely like a feel bad mechanic. I'm not sure how the guy did for the rest of the weekend. I think he was like a newer player and really, really wanted to win because I don't think he won any other games there. So I guess he just really put a lot of stock in winning.
I think what did it for me most is I sat there for an hour thinking I just pulled out a win against Taker Tribe on Savage Games for like an hour before I was told, oh no, I did. Okay, fine. I was pretty frustrated, but move on. I tell everybody here, I debated getting an Uber to the airport and going home. I was that frustrated. And then I had to keep telling myself the same thing I tell everybody else who goes to tournaments and has a bad day, that, value the experience over the outcome. And I could never say that to a person again if I packed my shit and went home over one loss, So I was like, hey, we'll stick it out. We'll see how it goes. But he and I had a good talk at the end of the tournament. He didn't feel good about it, but he's like, you didn't have it on there. So You know, you didn't have it on there, and maybe if I knew your battle line needed to be alive, maybe I focus on your battle line instead of sitting there holding objectives in the middle. Maybe I come get more aggressive, that kind of thing. So, you know, hindsight's 2020. I'll fix that moving forward. I won't ever take a list to a tournament again without checking it and triple checking it and double checking it. You know, just a mistake. But Matt Taylor and the other TOs were gracious enough to let me put it on there for the rest of the weekend, which was awesome. It just didn't really need it the rest of the weekend. I couldn't have used it that game. But it was cool. It's Chris. He's a long time player, but he's very new into the community. He said he plays, I guess, in a tighter knit group. He's starting to get in with the weird knobs and all the guys out there in Austin. I think it'll be fine moving forward. I think, you know, he didn't, like I said, he didn't feel good about it, and I told him no hard feelings, dude. I didn't have it on there. Fine, you're right. I didn't have it on there, so maybe you would have played a little differently if you knew it was there. So just moved on and still had a great weekend. No, you know, and kind of all the animosity that I had in the first 15 minutes of getting that ruling were gone by the time he and I talked again. So it was like, you know, he came over and congratulated me. I think he saw that I won every other game the rest of the weekend. So he was like, you know, congratulations, that kind of thing. And he's a good guy. There's just some etiquette on the table that, you know, I don't know how many GTs he's been to. It's just things you learn, you know. You just learn what to do and how to act a little bit differently, you know.
Makes
But
sense.
yeah, but he
So
was a good guy.
that was game one. So, and then like in general, like our club had a pretty good game one across the board. We had a lot of newer people playing that. That was their first tournament they got into. They had a lot of fun on that first game too. And then my second game was against Alex Brokenshire with his Deepkin. It's an Austin guy. I'd never played against him, but I'd seen him painting his stuff in a lot of the discords. He's a fantastic painter, and I think he wound up placing very well in the paint competition too. But he had a really really tough list. He had the new Reavers, new Thralls, and then all of the like the fixins around those units to make it very efficient. Like makes the damage. The way that the list is set up is that he flips tide and he's hitting on twos, rerolling ones across his whole army, and then gets +1 to wound from his Eidolon too. So he's wounding on twos for most of his stuff as well. And it like takes a lot of the math out of the game, which lets him make really good informed decisions. And he also won the roll off to dictate who deploy first, maybe go first, which is the right call. And we were on, I think, the Predator, Survival of the Fittest. That's what we're playing in game two. And so he had to pick units that were on the board, which created an interesting dynamic as far as what Predator units he had. He couldn't pick the Reavers, which had a little bit of an impact later in the game because you can only pick units that start on the board. And he started a lot of that off the board. So he picked his Turtle, and then he picked his Eidolon, and then he picked a unit of Reavers he started on the board. I took first turn, got the Squigs into his screens, killed all of his shield eels. And then on his turn back, he kills most of the Squig Herd, and the Squig Herd runs, so he doesn't get the Predator point. Because you have to kill it, you can't get it by it battle shocking off, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the unit has to kill it. Your Predator unit.
Right, so that was like, it denied him a point, and I wound up rezzing that unit later, which was created a little bit of a point differential there, which was nice. But after his first turn, I really, really needed to win priority, or the game's probably just over because he flipped tide. His whole army's fighting first. He gets to do another turn of damage. Kragnos is kind of in the middle, and he's just going to crumble to all the shooting and all the combat because he's going to fight first across his entire army. But I win priority, and I charge his Leviathan with Kragnos, and in high tide, it's real important that the sequence played out like it did. He probably does either a lot of damage to Kragnos or just outright kills him if I don't get the charge mortals I need.
Yeah, I think your mic's off.
I think we lost you, Gavin. Oh, I'll have to reset.
Well,
I did not know about the Predators not being that they can't.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I think,
my opponent put dragons off the board. So, whoops.
yeah, because they have to be on the field. Yeah, there we go.
No. All right. Internet problems. Wouldn't be a Harambe's Heroes podcast without them, dude. But so I blew up the turtle with the charge mortals. It's very important because it bypasses the damage it would have done in a turn, and it's a predator unit with Kragnos, who's also a predator and a monster point. And then I was also close enough to his Eidolon after I blew up the turtle with the charge that I was able to pile in and force him to use his Cloud of Midnight too, which was also a really big deal later in the game because you have to deal with that at some point, or you're just never going to kill the Eidolon. So I was able to strip the Cloud of Midnight off and then kill the turtle, which was a really big source of threat. And on my turn, I rezzed the Squig Herd at the end of my player turn, which is very important. So I get the board back, and I get a bunch of Predator points, and I get my battle tactic that turn. So I'm still in the game. He takes his turn, does another ton of damage to me again, kills all the Squigs, besides the Snufflers and the 18 man, and then 112 man, I think. So he kind of collapses my flank with his Reavers, and then gets into Kragnos a little bit, does some damage to Kragnos, I think 7 or 8 wounds with the Thralls, who are really efficient when they get into monsters because they have all those reroll mechanics, and then he's enough wounds to where they have 2 damage. So every one I was rolling, my save is still a 2+, but it's just volume of attacks a lot of the time. And so he's really cutting up Kragnos, and then he gets the board back, gets his tactic. So we're not equal on points because I have the monster point and the predator point, and we go into turn 3. He wins priority and takes the turn, so I burn the objective he has control of, and then it becomes a fight for the center because Kragnos is just sitting in the center with wounds on him, and the objective he had skewed to is gone, so I have control of the one in the far corner, and then I have control of center, so he has to move Kragnos to win. Takes his turn, does all of his preparation, shoots him some, does some damage, and then gets into combat. Kragnos has got 8 or 9 wounds left at the point when he gets into combat with him, and he goes with his big block of Thralls and gets him all the way down to 1 wound. And so Kragnos is sitting there with 1 wound left, and he had turned his Tidecaster into a monster so he could roar Kragnos, which is really smart. That's why I was able to do so much damage to Kragnos, because I was on a 3+. Because I had Finest Hour'd in his High Tide, because I had to respect the Eidolon damage. And then takes his turn, gets him all the way down to 1 wound, but he still has 2 Predator units in combat with him, and then he has a character that has been turned into a monster in base space with Kragnos as well. So I don't advise anyone to split attacks ever, but you have to realize if your path to victory involves splitting attacks, sometimes you just have to make really risky decisions. So I split 4 mace attacks into the Thralls that had done all the damage to him, the Tusk Breaker and his hooves into a really small beat up unit of Thralls. It was his other Predator unit, or no, his other Predator unit was his Eidolon. But I split the attacks into the Thralls that hadn't gone yet, which was important. And then I put 2 mace attacks into the Tidecaster. And I killed everything that I put attacks into. So that turn, I got a monster point, I got a predator point, and then I got broken ranks with a monster. So it was a huge point differential. And then he had the Eidolon left, and when he took his attacks, he didn't do any damage to Kragnos. Kragnos lived. So he didn't get center back either, so I got those points as well. And then I won priority, and that kind of sealed the game at that point. Now, Kragnos wound up dying on my turn because I had to stay in the middle. But I was kind of able to take the rest of the board and get enough of a point lead to just button the game up. Yeah, I think I wound up beating him by 5 or 6 points. But super tight game, awesome opponent. Was really happy to play him. I hadn't seen him on the scene yet. He's a really nice guy too. We had had a few like misunderstandings over the board, but we resolved it then and there. Like had excellent sportsmanship, and our game was dictated by decision making and not like gotcha mechanics, which was really cool. And so it gets 2-0, dude, by the skin of my teeth, and that was my game 2.
So for all the people out there who are here listening to you and Evan to see how many mortal wounds you did, how many mortal wounds did you do to that turtle when you charged it with Cragnus?
25. So yeah, he died.
25 mortal wounds, just casually.
Yeah. So I got a whole lot. Kragnos allowed me to beat an army I shouldn't have. That was probably the first one. I have another example of that later in my game recaps. Like Kragnos and Gitz definitely lets you beat things that you normally wouldn't be able to, and that was one of the armies that definitely gave me the punching power I needed, as opposed to like if I was just playing straight Gitz, I don't think I could have won that game. So it was cool to see Kragnos pay off. He feels really powerful, which was a lot of fun for the whole tournament in general. But yeah, this game 2, dude. I'll quit talking. I'll let somebody else talk about their game 2.
All right, Evan. Everybody's waiting to hear about your game 2, which I think was the best one for your mortal wound output.
It was definitely the best one. So let's say we were at 25 for game 1. In this one, I probably did close to, I would say almost 50 mortals at least. It was like 50 to 60. Because I don't have any other way to do mortals. So like that, it was just, and it wasn't spells. I didn't do any spell damage. It was just from the stairs and stuff. And basically, I did look it up. So it was Jody that I fought, and I didn't realize, and I don't think he realized either, obviously, about the predators not being able to start off the board because he put all his predators other than Bastion off the board, which I didn't care because I put the Rogue Idol, my Wargog with the 4-up ward save, and my pigs as the predators. So I set it up I kind of corner pocketed, and then I had my big stabbas way off onto the side, and then they tireless trackers moved up and took one of the objectives that turn, and he made me go first. So I just kind of shifted in a way towards the center because I knew those dragons were going to come down and the four fulminators he had. So I kind of put it in a way where he couldn't get into my back line and get to the stuff that I want, or that I have. So he goes. Bastion only does like 2 mortals to my Rogue Idol, and then he drops the fulminators, and kind of moves up and takes 2 of the objectives. The fulminators move to the center. They try to do broken ranks, and they fail. I end up with 2 left, 2 Savage Orcs left. So because of that, he was already down, but he had 2 of the objectives. We rolled off, and I ended up winning the roll-off, and the bad thing for him was that the fulminators were within line of sight, or within that 12 inches of 2 of my Wargogs. And so I had warned him specifically as he was moving it. I was like, hey, I know what you're trying to do, but just so you know, like, these 2 Wargogs are right there. And he's like, that's fine. I'm not too concerned about it. I was like, okay. So then we set it up, and I started going, and it's all start a hero phase, right? So I just started rolling on the one with the 6-up, and I think I took 2 damage, and I was at 23 mortals to the fulminators. So they had 1 with 1 move left, and I decided to stop. And then I was like, okay, so for my battle tactic, I'm going to pick broken ranks, and then this Wargog, that's the predator unit, is now going to stare at him. And so I stared and killed it, and so that was the points right there.
Mega brain just.
No. And then I healed them all up too. So like, it was just this weird
heroic recovery. Yeah. Nice, dude.
Yeah, and then the Wardox healed the Rogue Idol. So like I still had everything at full health. And luck, I will say, like, Jody, I haven't ever played him before this. He was honestly like one of the best players to fight, because even though he had that disgusting list, he was just, I mean, I stared, I don't know how much 4 fulminators are, but like, I just with 2 heroes just killed it. And he was just laughing the entire time. I mean, every time I killed something, he thought it was the funniest thing he ever seen, and it was just contagious watching it. I mean, he was calling people from like the other table behind us to like. He's like, "Look at all this shit I got on that he's taken off the board." So I ended up retaking. I took the center. I had the one on the far side, and then the pigs kind of lined up because where on the objective where Bastion was. He goes. Bastion runs into some Savage Orcs and brings them down to like 2 left. And then he decides to bring down the dragons and a 5 block of Liberators, which is all he had left in the in reserve. And he puts them all the way on the far side where my big stabbers are holding that objective. They're right on the center of the objective. He brings them down, and then he uses the Dragon's Fire right on the big stabbers and kills them, and then he can't claim the objective. So the dragons were just kind of sitting there outside of any threat range whatsoever. So we ended up going to. He didn't score many points on that, and then we ended up going to turn 3. I ended up winning it. He didn't remove an objective because he figured that one was probably the only one that he was going to hold on to. And Bastion was now in range of not only a Wargog, but the 10 pigs. So I was like, let me try to buff up the pigs and get into it. And I got all 10 pigs within range to attack him, and I brought him down to 2 wounds left. And I was like, this is going to suck because he's going to heal if he kills just one model. And he whiffed all his attacks. He ended up failing everything, and so he didn't heal off of it. And then he didn't really grab
Bastion didn't get one hit through on the...
No, yeah, and I even tried to like wah and everything because I knew that like Bastion was probably gonna kill a pig if he swung into it, but he ended up whiffing everything, and then he lost the roll off again. I won every roll off, which was insane, and then basically everything died except for his dragons. I stared another 5 Liberators to death. Bastion was killed off from the Wargog. Because he had the 4 up, but I only had to do 2 damage through 3 damage through the ward save. So I ended up doing like another 12 mortals, and then he finally died. And then he had this other hero, I can't remember her name, but she can teleport. She was hiding on one of the objectives, but the Wargog ran up on the previous turn. Like I auto ran him, so that he was just within 12, and then she died too. So he only had dragons left. His dragons come up and they kill the pigs that I had, but then he didn't get anything out of it. So then going into turn 5, I ended up just killing. Like I stared 2 dragons to death, and then I had lost all my work. I lost 2 of my Wargogs at that point, and then the Rogue Idol just killed the rest. So 2 dragons, I think 10 Liberators, Bastion at half health, and then 4 Fulminators. Just stared to death. Yeah, just with like 2 Wargogs. The one didn't even do anything because he was kind of like sitting in the back waiting for Deep Strike. Because I really thought he was going to be aggressive, and he ended up not being. So, but he was a really good sport. I mean, I would have been. I admitted to him that if I was in that situation, I would have been like super pissed.
280 points kills 1,500 points of that dude's army.
Yeah, no, it was
nuts.
And
balanced unit, dude.
Yeah, and I ended up losing 10 pigs, 8 pigs because he didn't even kill the unit. 8 pigs and then the 2 big stabbers. That's all, and I think like 8 Savage Orcs. In terms of points, I almost killed as many points that I had just from staring shit to death than what he killed. It was pretty brutal. I've never seen a game like that. He was even trying to get me to keep rolling after I killed the Fulminators, and I stopped after 30. I was like, I'm not going anymore. So
Excellent.
It was really brutal. So thank you, Jody. That was an excellent game.
Next.
Well, I'll go next. I'm not gonna be able to follow that up, but that's got to be the best game of the event for all of us. Just for pure hilarity.
My one with Matt was pretty good too.
I'd just be for pure hilarity.
For different reasons, yeah. But.
So my game 2, I pulled from Dallas one of the Chris's, Chris Keich. Sorry, dude, I'm going to butcher your name. But he's playing Castaway, Soulblight. It's a pretty good list. He's got Prince Vordry and a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, Gorslav, a Necromancer, 3 units of Blood Knights, some Zombies, some Direwolves, and some Velbats. So pretty standard Castaway build. Rousing Commander, all the stuff. But usually when we're talking about events, when I look at an event, I think, planning for outcomes, you got to plan for one game where you're going to roll bad, a few games where you're going to roll average, and one game where you'll roll like a god. Well, this game was the game out of any of them that I rolled like a god, and Chris's game where he rolled terrible. So those two things combined probably made it not the outcome he wanted. His list is definitely strong. I could tell he was a good player, but the rolls were not going his way this game. He gave me first turn. My Comets called, hit 6 units for, I think 3 of them took 3 mortals and 3 of them took 2. Killed 3 Blood Knights with Comets Call, almost. And I move up and I double shoot the Bastiladon and kill his Necromancer through his bodyguard saves with the Bastiladon. Turn 1, top of 1. And then I also roll a Saurus summon, so I have my Arc Asotec screening my Solar Engine, who's also screened by Skinks, and then I also got a summon for the Saurus in front of all that. So I had tons of screens. Also, turn 1, I run and shot and killed his 20 block of zombies with my 20 block of Skinks. So it was pretty devastating first turn for him. He gets the turn, moves up, Vordry kills the screen, and he swamps the middle objective and starts moving up on the sides. And then pretty devastatingly, he didn't get the roll-off, which he really needed with Vordry sitting right there. So I win the roll-off, move the Pterodon Riders up with all the buffs, and I also shoot the Engine of the Gods and the Arcosotec up the middle of the board. And the Pterodon Riders drop their bombs and kill Vordry between that, shooting, and combat. And then the Engine of the Gods and the Arcosotec go into the Direwolves and the other Zombie Dragon, killing all the Direwolves and tying up the Zombie Dragon. Meanwhile, on both sides of the board, I just have layers of Skinks and Saurus because I ended up that turn double pulsing the engine and getting 20 more Saurus. So I had 30 Saurus on the board and just layers of Skinks, and I think all the Bloodlight units were down to like 3 models each, and Vordry was off the board, and we just talked out the rest of the game because it was just everything went my way, nothing went his way. He was rolling terrible on his boards. So it didn't go the way he wanted. But I could definitely tell he was making moves. He knew what he was doing. He just didn't. This wasn't his day on this game. So
yeah, Thunder Lizard will do that to you. Turns out
it was brutal.
Brian, did you play a game too?
Yeah, I did. But before that, I just noticed that we got a comment in here pinned from Chris. Chris, I appreciate it, man. Don't stress it. Like, it's behind me, man. Don't even stress it. I'll see you in Slambo, and we'll grab a beer again, man. Don't even worry about it. I see he put it up, an apology in there. Don't even stress it, dude. We'll have a good time in San Antonio together. But now on to game 2. I was still in the dumps a little bit. And Jeff Biscaitis, one of my favorite people in the world to play. We have had some crazy games like the one at Hammerfest where he did 40 mortal wounds to Archaon with Scarbrand, and Archaon makes 21 saves and Slayer kings his ass off the table. Jeff was coming to get me back. He was like, oh yeah? Are any of those screens you got? So I'm playing Jeff Biscaitis. He's got Cruel Boys with Kragnos. And he's like, are any of those screens you got reinforced? I was like, no, why do you ask that? And he's like, well, I'm going to roll these 3 dice here, and I'm going to take those screens off the board and charge you with Kragnos and this big troll dude that does 4 damage attacks. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he commenced to rolling a 2 and 2 1s. So he took absolutely 0 of my screens off the board. So he came running in with that guy and Kragnos, and didn't change his game plan. And he killed all of my Noblars, some of my ogres, like 70 wounds total he did to my army on turn 1 before I ever moved a model. Good thing I brought 185. So I commenced to killing Kragnos. I killed Kragnos, and I killed, what is that thing called? The Brute, Marsh Crawler Brute, or
Meyer Brute Trogoth.
Meyer Brute Trogoth. So I killed that and killed Kragnos on my turn. And then
which one was it? Is the one that's upright or the one that's hunched over on all fours like your mama?
It's the one with the 2 clubs. The one that's double fisting like your mama.
Yeah, that's the Meyer Brute. That's the Meyer Brute Trog. Yeah, the other one's the Marsh Crawler Slogoth. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the Waller County Party Girl, where I come from. No, but and then I won the roll off, or maybe no, he won the roll off, but he didn't have a lot left. Because when he lost Kragnos and that dude, he had like some Arrow Boys, and Gorlock was over there banging on Hobrots, and so I rolled Blubbergrub Stench, and that's a little tech that Zach didn't mention when he went over my list in the when they talked about it on the Everchosen. So what that does is it lets those cannons charge like they were stone horns. So they came running out and did like 22 mortal wounds to his army on the charge, and by the time he got the turn back, I think he had the Swamp Crawler Shaman with the pot grot. He had that left, and like 2 of the guys with the shanks, the little grots.
Hop grots.
So yeah, he was like, okay, well, I think we're done, but it was a hilarious 15 minutes of Age of Sigmar. Like, it was just damage everywhere. He came and did 70 damage. I did like however much damage he had, his whole army. It was a great time. Jeff, we just laughed it off. And it was exactly the kind of game I needed and in fact, in that game, I wasn't even measuring distances when I was deploying. I just deployed. I just put my stuff down. My head still wasn't quite in it. Had he actually taken my screens off the table, he probably kills everything I have on the board that turn, and I just lose the game. I'm able to put some Noblars back on the board, but I got really lucky. He didn't get any of my screens off the board, so he just blew up Noblars and a couple of ogres. But it was a hilarious game. It was what I needed to get my head back in it. Just a couple of big, goofy bastards throwing shit at each other, But that's how that one went. Pulled out a win on my second one. I don't even remember what the points were because it was over so quickly. Like, there was nothing to it. I survived Cragwell.
Yeah. So that's round 2. My round 3 was against Carl Rohr, a dude from Orlando. We had a pretty good game. He was a nice dude. And it was cool to see someone come all the way from Orlando to go to one of our tournaments. He plays in a club that I've kind of seen around as I've traveled, called Space Force. Great name. So I had kind of noticed the club. I hadn't got to play him before, but he had Legion of the First Prince, which is kind of similar to Tzeentch in the way that Kragnos counters everything it wants to do. And I just have too many wounds for a Legion of the First Prince army to deal with a lot of the time, and the mission was the Vice, so it kind of it made all of those elements even more exacerbated those elements even more, because maybe if he was able to play for like a smaller portion of the board, he's able to like condense and maybe has a little more play than the Vice, where I have a teleport and a lot more bodies, and I was just able to like leverage my board presence better than him. I think I had almost twice as many wounds as him, and he couldn't do any magic damage to Kragnos, so I kind of just took control of the board, I had one sequence where I made like a huge charge to get on his back ice objective and kind of get the differential in my way for like early in the game and kind of forced him to play aggressively. And after that, he had to go in the center with Bellicor to try and move the squigs. And then Kragnos charged Bellicor and did 18 mortals, which is a lot. So between that and the attacks, Bellicor went down, and then the next turn, he had went. His Bloodthirster was so far back it wasn't able to get to Kragnos, and so he went, and then I won the roll off, and then kind of did the same thing to that model too. So that's kind of where we called it, talked it out. Great guy. I think he wound up going 3-2. But it's like I said, it's really similar to Zinch in that Kragnos and Gitz weirdly counters everything it's trying to do. So just a bad matchup, and I was stoked to be 3-0 with Gitz. I'd kind of like secretly hoped that it would be good as a list, but was expecting like a 2-1. I thought that was like reasonable. And to go 3-0 on day one was fantastic. I couldn't ask for a better result, or 3 better opponents. So that was my day one. That was y'all's day one. The end of y'all's day one.
My third game was a rematch from Austin. I got to play Noah again, who's from the East Coast, from the Worlds team. Excellent guy, excellent opponent. This was probably my most fun game of the weekend. Definitely the closest game I had. It was the Vice, which I'm pretty happy on that mission with Seraphon most of the time. Although Iron Jaws does have a lot of ways to speed across the board. But what ended up happening here was he made me go first. I was played really conservative. Moved up to where the objectives were going to go in turn 2, but played like on the back end of them, and then screened my left side with my arc. He had basically where you had to come in because I was using my Realm Shaper just as a screen. The only real opening was where I placed the arc. I double shot the Bastiladon turn 1 and killed 1 pig. So my shooting this game definitely evened out from the previous game. This is the one where I went the other way with all my damage. Killed 1 pig with the double shooting. Then he goes, moves up the board with his triple moving Malkrusha. But I had positioned far enough away to where he couldn't get into me turn 1, which ended up being really crucial. Because if he had gotten into my first screen turn 1 with that Malkrusha, he would have got to the 30 block and the Pterodons that were just behind it. But he didn't end up doing that. And so he ended up winning the roll-off and taking the turn. But all it ended up netting him was that first 10 block of Skinks. And then I think a couple Skinks out of the 30 block. And then that Malkrusha was sitting on my objective on that side, so he could get at that turn. And he had 3 pigs back there as well. That ended up being super crucial. That double turn only got him a 10 block of Skinks, so I still had most of my stuff on the board. I go bottom 2. The Pterodons, he had managed to tag the Pterodons within 3 of that Gorgrunta unit through the 30 block. But the Malkrusha was close enough that on the retreat move, I was able to drop the bombs. And did 9 or 10 mortals to the Malkrusha, who had already taken a few damage from an Unleash Hell. Like, I think he'd taken like 1 or 2. So he was sitting pretty wounded there. And then I juiced up the 30 block of Skinks, who was in combat, and then I tried to shoot off the, with all my other shooting, I tried to shoot off the 3 block of pigs, so that the Skinks in the 30 block could shoot the Malkrusha and then charge it. But I wasn't able to remove the pigs before the Skinks shot, so the 30 Skinks had to kill the last pig with all their shooting. But then I was able to charge the Malkrusha with the 30 block. But I kind of flubbed my damage, and I didn't end up killing it. But I did steal the objective and get my battle tactic. Because they survived, because it's 30 Skinks reducing damage. And at that point, he didn't have his War Chanter buff up on that Malkrusha, because the double turn had pulled him out of range of his War Chanter buff. And then we roll off, and he. So the recurring thing of this game was if I had won any roll off before at any point in the game, it would have just ended. But he ended up winning all the roll offs, which kept the game close. So he went, killed a few more skinks, moved up a couple things, but kept his destroyer crusher back in the backfield to keep it safe. Bottom of turn, I finished off that Maw Crusher that was up in my face, and then I killed a few pigs. And then we just traded back and forth, essentially. And towards the end of the game, he charged into my Engine of the Gods, who had Finest Hour with Destroyer. And he had a choice of whether to try and destroy the Realm Shaper where the Slan was, because from the Realm Shaper, the Slan was threatening the middle objective. Or he took, or to take the +1 attack against the engine, and he ended up having to take that because of the -1 to hit from Cloak of Feathers. It just barely allowed him to kill the Engine of the Gods. But it did end up killing it. But on my turn, the Pterodon Chief and the Slan jumped out of the Realm Shaper over some pigs that he was in combat with, and the Pterodon Chief moved over the Maw Crusher, and I stole the objective out from under him. And then towards the end of the game, ended up coming down to he was up by a few points, and so I needed to get my grand strategy and deny his, which was Predator's Domain, in order to win the game. But he hadn't put any damage into Bastillodon, so my grand strategy was safe. So I moved my 2 Bastillodons around to contest his terrain that he was holding, and then moved my heroes around to take more, and my 20 block of skinks that was left to take another one. So I was able to secure, on the final turn, bottom of turn, I was able to secure the middle objective with the Arca Sotek and tag enough terrain to deny his grand strategy, which let me win by 2 points. So it was a really, really close game that had a lot of back and forth. I'm actually kind of glad that he won all the roll-offs, because games like that were a lot of fun. And me and Noah had a lot of fun the whole time we played. But it's really a testament to how absurdly strong Thunder Lizard is, that all those rolls went his way and I was still able to pull it out.
Yeah.
But excellent opponent.
Pretty good. Oh yeah, no, he's okay. It's halfway decent of the game right here.
Yeah.
Y'all two had other games too, huh? On day one, maybe. What's go?
Yeah.
Brian.
Evan, Brent.
All right, I'll go. I played against Ryan Couch, one of the Dallas Defenders. Awesome opponent. And he was playing Iron Jaws, a cool variation of it. He had this super cool 3D printed Mega Boss on foot. That was really cool. I think he made the top 20 paint cut. The army looked beautiful. And we deployed. Obviously, I'm playing Underguts, so I want to be as far away from Iron Jaws as I can get, because I'm expecting a Maw Crusher to come flying across the table. So I want 2 turns to shoot at it before it can really threaten me. Perfect mission to draw this matchup for me, because it just gives me more time to deal with. Andy was running brutes, so it would take them a little bit longer to get there. So it just gave me plenty of time to deal with the fast thing in his army, which was the fast and Maw Crusher. But he took a turn on turn 1. He moved all of his brutes forward and went backwards with his Maw Crusher and parked it in a tree, way up there. Treated me a Maw Crusher on turn 1. He didn't want any part of the. I mean, it was a smart play, because he didn't want to get overly aggressive and just come running in with the Maw Crusher and lose that without the brutes being in my face also to force me to have to deal with that. But he came far enough off of his objective, because he wanted to get those slow-moving brutes going down the field with the longboard. That gave me enough room for Hrothgorn to drop in on his back corner objective. So dropped Hrothgorn in, took his back objective. I took Conquer on that turn, I think, because I saw that he had given me a window for Hrothgorn to drop in. So Hrothgorn dropped in, took that back objective with his little knobs, and I think I was able to get shooting on like a unit of brutes, so I just started picking at a unit of brutes. I might have taken 3 or 4 guys out of a unit of brutes, and then he won the roll off. So on that turn, I got conquered, got my points, got hold 1, hold 2, hold more on that particular objective. We got real lucky that he left me a spot for Hrothgorn to fit in. So I was able to take the lead on points and then force him to be a whole lot more aggressive than he wanted to be, maybe that early. So he just came running in. So he fastened his Maul Crusher. He, gave him the 3d6 charge, gave him, buffed him up to the gills, hit him with the kill a beat to get him beat, everything, and he came running in. And he brought some brutes in on the other side, and he charged the 10-man brutes, got them in on one side on some Noblars. And then on his 3d6 charge, I think he just rolled a 7. So he was like 4 or 5 away because we were still longboard. So he was able to get in, but he wasn't able to clear the screen and get over into anything that mattered because of how big that Maul Crusher base is. So he got into some Noblars, but what he also got into was Gorlock Black Powder. And I was like, well, I'm going to roll this. And I rolled a 9, and I was like, well, I'm going to take that Destroyer artifact from you. He's like, what? You going to do what? It's like, well, you're close to you're within 3 of Gorlock. So now we're going to do this thing. And I gave him the opportunity because I didn't want it to be one of those gotchas. And he's like, nah, man, I mean, he told me about it. I know what he does. I moved within. I did, I was like, because, it was very close. He could have just scooted him back, a half an inch in the other direction. So I snatched me a Destroyer. So when I took Destroyer off the Maul Crusher, I think I had killed his Kill and Beat. That's what I had. I had killed the Kill and Beat War Chanter, so he didn't have Kill and Beat on that Maul Crusher, and now he didn't have Destroyer. And so he just beat on some Noblars. I think he killed like 10 of them. So, and then I go into my turn, and I blast a Maul Crusher off the table. And then, and I still had Hrothgorn over there on that objective. He had scooted up, so I had positioned Hrothgorn. He scooted up to go get Hrothgorn off of that objective, and then he failed the charge. So Hrothgorn was still stuck holding his objective. So I didn't have to do anything with Hrothgorn. I just kind of sat there holding that objective with Hrothgorn, and then shooting at brutes, just picking 1 or 2 off here or there. And took out the Maul Crusher that turn. Got the monster point, got hold 1, hold 2, hold more. So at this point, I got a pretty significant lead. And I think I won the roll-off that time. And the unit of brutes was down to like 5 guys. But the only battle tactic I had a real chance at taking that turn was kill a battle line. But a unit of brutes, 5 brutes left in the unit, is not something that you can really bank on killing. But I risked it, and I rolled, and I had the butcher there. So I rolled the blast keg and rolled 2 or 3 6s and put like 9 mortal wounds into the unit or 8 mortal wounds into the unit with the blast keg. So that really helped chip those down. And shot them off the rest of the way. And at that point, we kind of just figured, and then I won the roll off for the next turn. So we kind of just called it right there. He was talking about he's got an 18-month-old that he just had, and it was up all night teething. So that might have helped my situation because he wasn't, he was pretty tired at that point. Game 3 on day 1, you're pretty exhausted. So we talked it out right there, but Gorlock, man, he was MVP this weekend. And the Butcher, too. The Butcher was blowing things up with the blast cake pretty consistently. But Gorlock snatching the Destroyer off of that Maul Crusher made it where I was under no pressure. So his Kill and Beat was already dead. So our Kill and Beat was already dead, and now the Maul Crusher is just a plain old Maul Crusher. So that was pretty easy. Hilarious guy. beautiful army. Glad I had finally got to play him. We had been in several tournaments at the same time throughout the last couple of years, but never actually got to play. So it was a good time getting to play him. And I ended the day 2-1, feeling a lot better than I started the day. And I was exhausted though. I had to play my tail off. Even the one against the Skytus that seemed easy because it went so fast. It was like everything that had to happen in that happened. You know, getting the rolling the box cars on getting the blubber grub stench off, and like all those things having to happen, and him also not removing my screen. Like it was a long day. It was a long day, but I felt pretty good at the end of it.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess it's just my game 3 then. So, my game 3 was against our own Harambe player, Ben Riddle, and
Ben Riddle.
I wasn't too confident, to be honest, because basically I knew he was just gonna sit back and just chuck mortals at me. I do feel like it somewhat helped that he was running salamanders instead of Bastiladons, because it was really only the Slan and the one Bastiladon he had that was able to actually pose any threat. One of the things that also helped was I gave one of my Wargogs an artifact that every enemy monster within 24 inches gives me a +1 to cast, unbind, and dispel. And because he had 3 monsters, and I have the dance from the Wardock, I was able to get +4 to my unbind. He still got some spells off because I roll like shit on unbinds, but like I basically like he it was a gotcha moment. But basically we positioned it where he was like, okay, I'm outside 30, so it's going to be at least a turn. But then I tireless trackered for 5 inches, and so now I was within 30 of everything. So it meant no cast for me, obviously, but I 100% knew I wasn't getting any spells off. And then I felt like Ben kind of choked a little bit fighting like another Harambe, I guess, and then also fighting an army he's not used to. Like, the funniest part about it was he asked me which subfaction I was running. I'm like, I'm running Bone Splitters. He's like, so it's Iron Jaws? I said, no. And he's like, oh, okay, so it's Cruel Boys. I said, no. And he's like, but there's only 2 that you can run. I said, no, there's 3 that you can run. Well, 4, technically. I was like, this one is its own subfaction. It's all the...
Yeah, this is the one that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah. So, not, like, give him credit, like, I made a mistake with both of my Seraphon games, Game 3 and Game 4. I made a huge mistake in which I had no need to go up further, closer to them, and get within their threat range, and yet I did. I kind of bum rushed the center because I knew like by turn 4 I would need to do it, and my stuff doesn't move incredibly fast. It ended up really doing work on me. I mean, he did win a couple of the roll-offs, got the double turn going into turn 2, and was just kind of taking out a lot of my stuff, because he did end up getting Comet's Call on turn 2, and he rolled a 6 on the d6. So he was really hitting a lot of things. I think the one other mistake is he kept trying to shoot the Rogue Idol, but I had 2 Wardocks that just kept healing him. So I felt like that was a little bit of a wasted effort, but I understand the Rogue Idol is kind of like that fear piece. They see it and they're like, okay, this thing can slap me, but I have no way to get to him. So I ended up moving up. I was kind of hoping for the roll-off into turn 3, and I did not get it. And that's when the punishment really happened, and I started losing a lot of my shit. I think I lost a Wardock, and then I ended up losing 10 block of orcs. My pigs got shot to shit, and my general was almost dead, and I haven't even wad yet, because most of his damage is from shooting. So finally, it's my turn, and I'm like, you know what, I'm about to lose this thing, so fuck it. And I run up. I like auto 6 my Wargog. I auto 6 one Wargog. So it's literally like in the middle of his army on his side. And I mean, I could literally have done Savage Gains. Was how like far. Well, I mean, I guess, but I mean, like I was on his quarter of the side with 2 Wargogs, because the other Wargog with the 4 up Warsaw just charged into his Skinks and Salamanders, and then I just wad that turn, and I was like, we're doing this. I mean, I haven't killed like anything that he has, so let's just hope that I can do it. Well, I ended up finally winning the roll off, and I killed his Bastillodon with one shot with the lasers, the stare, and then I killed his Engine of the Gods with the stare. So like those were gone, and then he only had one left, and the Rogue Idol kind of ran into it and killed it. So he only had at that point like salamanders, but the Wargogs actually killed a couple of the skinks from in that salamander unit, and Ben, I don't know how you have 6 CP and then end up using all of it, but like he ended up not having any CP, and he lost a salamander unit to Battle Shock. Like he rolled a 6 and it was just gone, and so that was really brutal. And then the other one was kind of tied in combat with the pig still, and going into turn 4, it moved to the center, and he had just the slam left, and he couldn't really do anything because I still had the Wargog, one of the Wargogs just sitting there in range, ready to stare him too. So, but it was a really close game. I think I made a major mistake, but I felt like he focused too much on the Rogue Idol again. My Wardocs never even got hurt the entire game. Like that was something that was really weird. All tournament, I only lost one Wardock, and those things are still really good, but they're also kind of easy to overlook when they're standing next to a Rogue Idol. So, Ben, thank you for the good game. I hate fighting Seraphon, but you made it at least worthwhile. So.
Because a game never turned on a dime ever, like in a single turn like that. Like engine gone, Bastillodon gone,
yeah,
Sneak Sheep gone. Like
it was one of those things where like I mean, if I hadn't gotten the roll off, like I would have probably surrendered on the spot because I lost everything. I lost all the stuff that was important. Maybe I could have held it down, but his shooting is so oppressive, and I don't have the ward save. I don't have an effective ward save for the shooting. So, and CP's already tough. He's still getting Comet's Call off and all that stuff. So, it was really tough for me to pull that off. And I think Ben did everything right. It just the stairs, man. That was I did stare another unit down. So that was it 12? It was 12, and then probably another 10. So 32 or 34 mortals. That I did with 2 Wargogs.
Those Wargogs, they can really turn a game around if you just
100%.
You have to, like, you bottom a turn. I'm just gonna run in, and if I get the roll up, I'm gonna win. And if I don't, I lose.
Yeah, and so that like total. I mean, if we compare all 3 games, it was like almost. I'm pretty sure it was over 100 mortals that those 3 Wargogs did in 3 games, which is just ungodly amounts of like
moderate amount of mortal wounds. Yeah,
I think I am single-handedly going to jack up the price on that unit. So it's so good. I mean, I met a player there. I didn't play him, but there was another table, and the guy that was playing there, he fought my Wargog that I did for New Orleans for the U.S. Open, and he remembered what the Wargog did. And he's like, I built this. He's like, I tweaked my list specifically so that I could do something to that Wargog. Because he's like, because he was one of those people that he was running Gloomspike Gits, and I stared down 10 of the. I ended up staring 10 of the hoppers down, and then I moved up so that the giant was about to get stared as well, and I won the roll off, and he surrendered. So that was something that like he was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So, I mean, those Wargogs, like they're. I think
it's still on the spot, dude.
Yeah, I think if Bone Splitters had their 2.0 rules and still had the Wargog ability, they'd be insanely good. Like, I don't think they'd be like meta, but they would just be so fun. I built that list specifically for anti-charge, and I didn't fight a single army that charged me the entire tournament. So for it to do so well against the armies that I did, like I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
solid. So you got
3-0 with Bone Splitters.
They won.
Yeah, over the moon. Pretty good. 3-0. Yeah, that's day 1, dude. And then we kind of knew who we were gonna play the next day. And so I was real happy that I went 3-0 with Gitz, and then I see Matt Robish on the pairing for the placings for me. And if you don't know Matt, he's pretty good. Age of Sigmar is okay. But no, I knew that our game was going to be super tight. I played him once before, and I won by 1 point. Stay tuned for that. It's an important number later. And we're going to play on Vainziger, which is mission 4. In hindsight, I don't really like mission 4 being Vainziger, especially with like kind of how the separation in battle points had been happening up until that game. It's a really big point spike that can happen really late into your tournament. So like maybe like you've almost got like a path set before that game, and then it disrupts the path of the players that have kind of separated themselves from the pack a little bit. It lets people create a really big differential in a game and like catch up and pass if they aren't playing so well in other games, I think. So if you're going to use that mission, I'd like to see it earlier in the pack, I think. It's like a small caveat.
Don't use the mission.
Yeah, or that one. So we get into the game. We do like some pre-game chatter. We both know what each other's stuff does because we've had a night's prep and both have a really good understanding of the game. So he's higher drops than me. I make him go first. He plays conservative. And then on my turn, I did something pretty stupid. I was at the bottom of 1, and I got a couple rolls that made me reconsider my game plan, which I should have done in hindsight. And it'll kind of like explore how it affected game development as the game went. But I knew that I wanted to play conservatively turn 1, but he had moved up like just close enough to where maybe if I roll really well, I can get engagement in his front lines. And I get a lot of my buffs up, and I roll my teleport. I get a few rolls that like I get Mystic Shield that gives me some confidence to go up with Kragnos. I get the teleport, so that gives me some confidence to try and maybe roll an engagement with my squigs. I get some other things. I'm like, well, maybe I can try to engage here. Which was the wrong call in hindsight. I snuffled both of my Snufflos, not thinking I spaced on the ability, not understanding that Kragnos was going to have to go around, and it changed the charge dynamic from like a 9-inch charge to about like a 11 or 12-inch charge because I had to walk around the Snufflers. And the Squig Herd teleported, and I tried to charge the Kragnos first into like he had went up with his Blood Knights and his Zombie Dragon, the 2 big juicy targets. I'm like, well, if I'm going to control center, I need to damage now. Fail to charge twice, and then roll a Squig Herd and make a bad decision even worse because I go into his zombies. Don't get super meaningful damage done. I do get control of the middle, which I guess was important in hindsight. But I probably shouldn't have engaged on turn 1, thinking about it now. But I did. And we go to turn roll off. He gets a turn. Objective falls in center in the middle of my Squig Herd. He takes broken ranks on the Squig Herd because he's got a lot of his units like centered right around the Squig Herd, and they're tied up in combat, and there's like maybe 28, 29 squigs left. So he's confident that he can kill the squigs. In hindsight, he probably made the right call there, but it is a lot of wounds to do. And he charges the Blood Knights in and the Zombie Dragon in. The zombies get buffed up, and he kills the squigs all the way down to like 3 models, and I auto pass, and he fails his battle tactic, but he gets the center back, which wound up being a big point swing as the game developed. And so he's kind of stuck out in the middle of my army besides the 36 man. So he's kind of decimated the 36 man of squigs. But his Zombie Dragon and the Blood Knights are in front of Kragnos now, which is kind of where I wanted to be. I go to charge. Kragnos to Zombie Dragon. I flop it. I roll 2 mortals, which is awful. It's not what I'm looking for. And then I had broken ranks to the Blood Knights because there was 4 Blood Knights there, and I put all my attacks into the Blood Knights. I only killed 2 Blood Knights, so I don't get my battle tactic either. So unideal turn 2, and we go to. So I'm looking at what I want to accomplish there. He had kind of committed to the left side of his board, which is what I wanted. I wanted him on the board so it informed where I needed to go and like what I needed to prioritize for board space wise. And I got engagement into his Blood Knights and his Zombie Dragon, which I wanted. But none of the damage goes through, so awful outcome. I think I take the objective back because Kragnos is worth so many models. I can't remember in hindsight. But we're both really low on points, and then we go to turn 3, roll off all the objectives fall. That objective fell into the center of his army, like offset off the side, and then the other 2 objectives fall in a line, like right in line with that objective. So all the objectives are on the side that he brought his whole army onto, in a line. And then I lose a turn, roll off. I'm like, well, fucking fine. I guess the Gits have run out of magic. Like, yeah, I didn't get anything I needed to do. The objectives fell where they fell. It's okay. There's no shame in losing a mat. I cried a little bit about where the objectives fell, like a child, which in hindsight I regret a little bit. I told Matt later in the game too, and but we keep playing because it's what we do. You don't give up. Heart of the cards, all that bullshit. And he takes his turn. Doesn't get Kragnos off the board, which was important, and takes all the objectives in a line. So he gets his tactic and he gets all 3 objectives, but Kragnos is still stuck in the middle. Or he only gets 2 objectives because Kragnos is still stuck in the middle. And then on my turn, Kragnos barely gets the Zombie Dragon off the board, and I want to say he dies on my turn. I can't remember. I put all my attacks into the Zombie Dragon on his turn 3, and he got him all the way down to 1 wound left, and then Kragnos screamed at him and killed him with the scream. And then I think on my turn, I had to leave him in combat, so he died. And then, so my turn 3, I think I teleport trying to make a charge into the objective on his, like the back end of his deployment. Failed to charge, but I got the objective back on my side. So I got my tactic, and I got 6 points. So I got 8 points, 9 points with the monster kill. So I'm still hanging around, right? And then the Squig Herd had come back off regeneration, so that was really important too. Gave me the material I needed to play for the center of the board. At the end of turn 3, we go to roll off. I win the roll off there, which is really important because it let me get all 3 of the objectives on turn 4 and kind of equalize. I had been bleeding points up until then, and it let me equalize a little bit. Didn't really kill a lot. Like, he still had his 10-man Blood Knight unit running around doing whatever it wanted. I was just kind of playing around it, like avoiding it, trying to kill everything else. And he takes his turn 4. I think he equalizes board. Maybe he doesn't score one of the objectives. I can't remember. But then we go to turn 5, and I win that roll off as well, and I'm able to get all 3 objectives again. And then I set up, which is really important, I set up the squigs in the center to be where I could declare the unit towards the middle or the one on my side on his turn. So he had 10 Blood Knights, but he was kind of marooned where he had to run around and he wasn't going to get to the squigs. And he had to to win, he had to play for both objectives. And he wasn't able to get to both objectives because of the way that I had models and units set up. And he had to declare what those models were, what that model count was toward one of those objectives. And I could just respond by putting the units I had towards that same objective and taking it. So, like, that was really important for controlling both of the objectives. And then his battle tactic was to regenerate his zombies from the grave. He hadn't rolled it all game. We go to the end of the battle shock phase. He rolls regeneration, and they regenerate on top of an objective. When neither one of us had really been counting the points up until this point because it was so close. And it wound up being a 1 point differential in my favor because he got his tactic and he got that one objective, but he was down by 8 points. So I won 41-40. And, like, I shouldn't have won. I had no business winning that game, to be honest. Like, the way the objectives fell and the way he played, he should have been able to wrap that game up early if it had been a normal mission, but it was Vainziger, so it has a catch-up mechanic at the end of the game. And I just made a bunch of gambits that paid off for me and stole game 4. So 4-0 it gets. It's pretty good, I hear. And that was my round 4. So what was y'all's thing?
I'll go ahead and get mine out of the way. It's going to be fairly short. So overnight, we look at the pairings. And it looks like Gavin's going to get Matt Robish, and it looks like I'm going to get the other Soul Blight player that's undefeated. One of the other ones, because Roger Barker paired in the Thomas Guan. But Christian Alessi was going to be my opponent, and he was playing Castellai with a bunch of Blood Knights and things, which I'm fairly happy about playing, as we found out in round 2. But about 10 minutes, so we all get to our tables, and he doesn't show. And about 10 minutes into the round, we realized he's gone. So we tracked down Mitchell, who was in his club, to find out, if he was going to make it or what was going on. And apparently his dog got sick and he had to take his dog to the vet or something, which is super unfortunate because he was undefeated coming into the round. But at that point, it was too late because everyone else was already playing for about 10 minutes, so it was too late for them to redo pairings and start over. So they had to go to their ringer armies, and try to find the best army they could put on the table to try and give me a game up at table 3. And it ended up being Brian Henderson that they gave me, and it wasn't a bad list. He was playing Bastion and 9 Long Strikes and a Wind Spirit, which I ended up playing a very similar list around 5, but just unfortunately for him, while it was a good list, Vanguard Raptors into Seraphon is a really bad time because you're reducing all their damage by half. So I won't go into the details of the match too much. But I basically just swapped board with my Pterodons and killed all of his shooting with my shooting because it wasn't damaging me very much, while the Pterodons took all the objectives once they dropped. And that was kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah, Brian's like a huge guy in the Dallas community, right? He owns Texas Toy Soldier up there, and just a great guy to be around. He's been a whole lot more since I met him at Masters in 2019, and he's just been heavily involved in the community since then. So great guy to be around.
Great dude. We talked it out a lot because he didn't, obviously coming to the round, he didn't know he was going to be playing up at table 3 or 4, whatever table it was, and he tried his best to give me a game. Just had a bad matchup with Vanguard Raptors into Seraphon, but we had fun. We talked it out. He's a great dude, like Brian said, and we had fun. But that was my round 4.
Well, my round 4, I was looking at the pairings, and I thought I knew all night long what I was going to get paired into. I thought I was going to be paired into Marcus Miller. He and I haven't played since War Games Con 2019, so I was actually really pumped about the matchup. I figured my list would play well into Double Terrorgeist. I thought I would do fine into it, so I was paying attention to the matchup. I was looking at, making sure I knew the rules, talking to Gavin and Zach. Gavin played Terrorgeist like a savage for a long time, so I had a good brain to pick there on how to play the matchup very well. So I was set up for it. I was prepared. I was like, all right, cool. We're gonna get some Terrorgeist, and then I pair into Lumineth instead. So
Not Terrorgeist.
Yeah, not Terrorgeist at all. So, and I paired into Terran, the guy who Zach played round 1. Great player. I think this is his first GT. I think he plays with. If anybody watches or listens to the Ever Chosen podcast, and you hear Marco complain about Lumineth and complain about OBR, this is the guy that makes Marco hate those two armies so much. So we set up. Basically, I do my normal deployment because, we got 2 rounds to really worry about scoring objectives. And he decided to go ahead and go first, I think, if I remember correctly, and get all of his buffs up and things like that. And he was playing very conservative with Teclis because he was worried about the cannons being able to kill Teclis. So he went first, got his buffs up, got the important things up, Darkness of the Soul. Or he actually didn't get Darkness of the Soul up. What he got was Crippling Vertigo on my 8-man unit, or on my 8-man unit of Iron Blasters. Of Lead Belchers. So I couldn't move, or I couldn't move them, but then I was still able to shoot them, but didn't do anything. I shot Wardens that still had both. So I did pull both Aether Courts off of that 20 block of Wardens, which was could have been a big deal in the game. Being able to, that's his big block of Wardens, being able to pull all their defense off of them that early into the game. But it turned out I only killed I killed 5, maybe 6, and then I won the roll off, and then I think I shot it some more. Didn't do much, but the objective dropped right on the left side of the table, so I just ran Gorlock up there and took the objective. Because turn 1 we really weren't scoring anything. I just dropped on turn 1. I just dropped Hrothgorn in for Savage Spearhead to get an easy battle tactic and not have to push out into Seraphon. Out into Lumineth. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, right? Basically. So I didn't have to push out into it, got my battle tactic. Turn 1, the objective drops on the side of the board where I'm heavily deployed and where he's not. So Gorlock ran up there, sat on that objective, and scored me some points and passed the turn. I think at this point he's still playing a little conservative to avoid the cannons. And I think it was about turn 3 when he realized these cannons can't hurt my army. They just can't hurt my army. They're hitting on 4s, and he's negating Alderaan, and they just weren't doing much. But by then, so the objective dropped in. I took it. He teleported a 10-man unit of Wardens over to... and one play that he does, and I don't remember if Zach mentioned it, he always has that 110 block not in Shining Company so that he can do the battle tactic for run 3 units, and he can teleport them and still be able to charge them. So that's a real smart play. But he teleported them over and failed the charge. I think he re-rolled it and failed it again. So he had taken Conquer on that, so he didn't get his battle tactic. So at this point, and I don't think he got his battle... no, he got his battle tactic the first time. So at this point, he's a battle tactic down, and he's a whole round of not scoring any objectives. And then round 3 comes, the objectives fall. Mine on my side falls right into my maw pot, literally in it. And so he was never going to get that one, and the one on his side fell basically on Hrothgorn. So without having to do much, I had all 3 objectives and just ran up the Noblars that were left and created basically a Noblar wall. And was like, okay, well, you're on that side of the board, I'm on this side of the board. Let's get some beef on the objective and just outlast you. I can't kill you. He was doing, a lot of searing light damage, but into ogres, it's like after the first round, he didn't kill anything. I just kicked the pot, healed it all back up. So basically, on the second round, searing light didn't do much again. That was the only damage output that he really had to get on me, is all the searing light and stuff. So I wasn't taking any damage. I still had almost my whole army, and then I won the roll-off on turn 3. And we kind of figured, we kind of called it at that point, because worst-case scenario, we just trade the objectives back and forth for the next following, couple of turns. And with me being already ahead on a couple of battle tactics and, a couple of rounds of scoring, that he just wasn't going to be able to catch me. So we talked it out. Great opponent. He's going to be a handful. He's new to the Texas scene, but it's going to be a handful when he gets out there. Remember the name, Taryn. He's going to. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I imagine he's going to be a real handful. He played it very well. It was just I got lucky. The objectives fell on my side of the board, and I won the priority rolls. That's really what won that game for me. Because had it gone the other way and they fallen on his side of the board, and I didn't get the turn roll off, there's no way I was knocking all those wardens off of those objectives. I mean, ogres can fight, but they weren't fighting through 2 unrendable saves. Just wasn't going to do it. But yeah, that was my game 4 and came out. I'm sitting there at 3-1 and feeling pretty good.
Yeah, my game 4 was pretty gruesome. I fought Caleb, and I've been wanting to rematch Caleb anyways. My first GT was at the Texas Masters event, and for doubles, and he had double Gotrek, and hit for him and his teammate, and like we were fighting. We were fighting out for second place, and so I watch his YouTube channel, and I know he's like Seraphon, I think is all he does. I'm not sure, but I know he knows his stuff, and so I was really surprised when he's like, I haven't fought Bone Splitters in like 4 or 5 years. So that was kind of crazy. But I told him what I did, what my army does, and he, believe it or not, he did what no one else did, which was just kill the Wargogs turn 1, and and so I made the mistake of just kind of moving up when I didn't really need to. Especially, I hate Veins of Gur because I always play more aggressive than I need to, and he ended up getting the double turn and just shot 2 out of 3 of my Wargogs off the board. Just Comet's calling a bunch of stuff. Just really laying it into me, and I have a ton of wounds, but at a certain point, I was like, okay, I need to back up. So I ended up backing up, and then the objectives appeared like literally opposite ends of each other, like worst placings possible for what I can do. And then I just tried to separate. He kept getting summons off. The entire game, I only killed 10 Saurus Knights, and he ended up summoning 30 Saurus Warriors. So he ended the game with more wounds than he started with. And it was still pretty close. I think if I had won any of those roll-offs, I could have... Because I had 2 of the objectives for most of the game. Going from turn... Yeah, I had the center objective, and then I had the back objective for most of the game. But on turn 4, I betted on my Rogue Idol not dying. And I did the calculations, and he should have survived pretty, with a couple wounds left, and he ended up dying, which completely just at that point I was like, all right, well, I have to win the roll off if I'm gonna just tie with it, and I ended up failing the roll off, so that was that was it right then and there. So it was really close. I think it was just only 5 points difference, so one objective hold that changed the way the game went. And it was a pretty big mistake that I made, too. So I kind of wish, Caleb, that you just had waited one more GT to not bring Gotrek. I've been seeing you play Gotrek for like the last year and a half, and now all of a sudden you decide to swap it out when I wanted to fight a Gotrek. So thank you for that. But other than that, I enjoy fighting Caleb. I see him as a really experienced player who, unlike me, can stick with an army and really master it.
I'm gonna strangle that rat dog, dude.
So I'm sure he'll talk shit about me on his YouTube channel if he even mentions me at all. So no, I'm surprised.
Dude,
usually
he was a great guy. Yeah.
Usually we say his name and he appears in the chat. Like you mentioned Seraphon, he just pops out of nowhere. So. But,
yeah, the engine of the gods summons Caleb to the chat every time you mention Seraphon.
And to put in perspective too, like I scored all 5 battle tactics, and I scored my grand strategy, even though I barely did anything. the entire game other than run around the board. And if I hadn't moved up that first turn, that Bastillodon shot probably would have been pretty big. So it was kind of a interesting experience. I think Seraphon always throw me through a loop, so thank you.
Yeah, I think
for
that's
that
the
game.
thing. That's the thing with them, right? If you commit to going into them, even though you get blasted, you gotta go. You just gotta
Yeah.
keep going. If
Yeah.
you commit to going in, if you walk into their damage
here's
and
Caleb.
then if you walk into their damage and then just back off, like you're giving them what they want.
I swear, you say his name 3 times, he just appears.
Yeah. But no go trick this time.
No go trick. So thank you for that, because I can't believe that they were showing all the lists of like Marathis, Gotreks, Kragnoses, like all that shit, and I ended up fighting none of that. Like, I don't know how I dodged all that. No, I didn't fight a single destruction army. I didn't fight a single death army, and that is really irritating. I didn't. I mean, I'm glad I did as well as I did against the order armies, because I was like, if I go against shooting, I just lose. And literally 3 out of the 5 armies were just shooting.
I appreciate that, dog. You got all those matchups. I didn't get to play against shooting armies.
I know. I took one for the team, man, so you can bump up my glue fight gets.
Hell yeah.
So, but yeah, Caleb, great game. I'm probably gonna grudge you in the future with a real army. So.
Seraphon.
Yeah. So, but yep, that was my game 4.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the whole round, huh? Everyone's went.
Yep, we're on 5
Nice.
now.
So we're going to game 5, dude. So at this point, I'm 4-0 with Gits. So I'm like, I've already seen what I wanted to do, but I also definitely want to win game 5. And I'm looking at placings, and I knew that we're going to get to play our buddy Tom Guan, and he's our newly christened Harambe's hero. And if y'all haven't met Tom around on the scene, you will one day, because he goes to every single event, like all of them. And he just started playing in August, and he's gotten he's gotten as good as fast as I've seen anyone get over the course of like 6 months or so, because he plays so much. Like, he started playing in August, and he's already like challenging all of the players who normally do really well. And at this tournament, he went 4-0 with the Blight Krieg Megakin. Really, a really cool list design. He had Gutrot Spume, and he outflanked the Glutkin with the Blight Kings. In the games before mine, he didn't outflank it in our game, which wound up being pretty important with way deployed. We were playing Feral Foray, so it was 6 objectives, so the whole board was going to be in play, which was also really important. He won the roll-off to deploy first, which I didn't want to see happen, because we're both 1-drops. I definitely wanted to put him on first turn if I could, because of how slow his army is. He can't threaten my objectives turn 1 unless he outflanks. But that's not how it went. He made me deploy first, and then he deployed on the board with the intention to make me go first, which was probably the right call. Made a few zoning errors with where he deployed, which we discussed in game. We kind of both agreed afterwards. But he deployed up with his Plague Bears enough to where I could make a charge with the Squig Herd if I got my spells off, which I did. And so I took more objectives on turn 1 and started. On Feral 4, it's really hard to get a points lead because of the way the mission scores. And I was able to kind of take his right side of his board pretty handily with 36 Squig Herd, because all he had was the 20 Plague Bears there. And I killed like 12 Plague Bears, and because he stopped my pile-in, which is really good tech in that army. But I took the objective, and I start the scaling early on getting 3 points from the board, get my battle tactic. He takes his turn. He can't get that objective back, and he only scores 1 and 2. So he only scores 2 from the board in his battle tactic. So I keep that lead. We go to turn priority roll, and he wins it and takes it. I win it, and I debate taking it for a little while. But he had put his plague drones into the squig herd, which was right in front of Kragnos, and those plague drones are battle line in droning guard. So I thought I could get broken ranks with Kragnos pretty handily there, and that would give me another point, and I would still have control of 4 objectives. He kind of pushed his Blight Kings up on my other flank, so if I give him the turn, he takes that objective from me, and then I'm in a weird spot where I have to make some decisions on like how to get the board back, and I don't have a slam dunk broken ranks battle tactic. So I take a turn, I get broken ranks with Kragnos. He stopped my pile-in, and I killed one of the drones with my charge damage. So all I got to attack the other 2 drones with was my Dread Mace, which was a little scary, but I was able to get the other 2 drones off the board, even with that happening. If that had went wrong, that could have been really bad. But it didn't, so I get broken ranks with Monster. And I get 3 from the board, so I get 6. And he asked me, like kind of cheekily, if I wanted to burn the objective I was on his side. And I'm like, no, Tom, I'm not burning the objective yet. And then he's like, oh, fuck. Because he starts to realize how the structure of the scoring for the mission is going to be. Which is it's a really easy mistake to make on Feral Foray if you haven't played that mission before, is burning those objectives too fast and too early. Because you start to kill your ability to score 3 from the board, and all you get is the 1 point. What you really want to do on Feral Foray is burn an objective on turn 3, 4, and 5, if you can, and still collect all of the points from the board. So you get all 3 of those extra points, and you still keep your scaling on the points from you're getting from the board. So that's how the turn goes. He goes on turn 2, and he auto runs onto the objective on my flank with the Blight Kings way on the other side of the board and burns that objective, which in hindsight was probably the wrong call for the reasons I just described. But he had done that, and on turn 3, he won the turn roll-off, and he decided to take it after he deliberated for a little bit, and I burned the objective that was in the center on my side off of the board. And Kragnos had kind of staged to go to the center of his side and start to kind of collect the board and sweep around, because the Glock cannon went straight up the middle for that center objective, and the Blight Kings were on the side. But I had also teleported Squigs to the very far corner of the board to threaten his backside objective if he moved away with the Blight Kings. And then he won that turn roll off and took the turn, which is probably the right call. But I was able to burn that objective and deny him that extra point. And then the Blight Kings were kind of marooned on my flank because they had nowhere to go. If he goes there, he can't go to my center objective because it's not there anymore. He can't get to the one that's in my corner, and he's so far up that if he was going to turn around, it's going to take him it's going to take him at least 2 turns to get to his back objective and deny those Squigs from getting on them. And there's also 12 Squigs there, and it's only 10 Blight Kings. So even if he gets the 10 Blight Kings there, if he's not zoning me off of the objective, I can just get on the objectives with the Squigs and take it back from him. So I've created an issue on his side of the board there. Kragnos solidly has the other side of the board, and I'm fixing to condense into the center of his board and just take the rest of his side, because the Glockin's kind of out in the center and the Blight Kings are on my flank. So he takes a turn. He goes in with the Glockin. He summons a Beast of Nurgle, which was really smart, and then he makes an 11-inch charge with that, and then rolls a 10-inch charge with the Glockin, and is able to get to my corner objective a turn quicker than I thought he would. And he gets into the center of it too, prepping it to burn it, and he just kills. He murders everything and stomps on my shrine, murders all the stuff that's there, because I've kind of moved everything else away from that. He doesn't burn the objective because he knew he had to have more objectives to keep collecting board. If he had burned that objective, he would have only gotten 2 from the board, I believe. So he doesn't burn the objective, but he gets 2 from the board because there's 4 objectives left, and I have 2 of them. And he has 2, so he doesn't have more than me, but he gets 2, and he gets his battle tactic. So he gets 4. And then I take my turn, and I get 3 from the board, and I burn I teleport onto his back center objective and burn it, so I get another 6 on turn 3, and then on turn 4, can't remember if he won the turn roll off on turn 4, and he started to move away from my back corner objective with the Glotkin. It's still kind of marooned because it's so slow. The Blight Kings murder the squigs that are on his back corner objective. So he's on turn 4, and he has that objective, and he's starting to move away from that one that's in my corner. But he still can't clear the one that's in his back right corner. But he has 2 and more that turn, and he gets his battle tactic. But he doesn't burn my objective in the back again, which is the right call. He gets 5, and then on my turn to go, Kragnos was kind of in the center because he had charged some Plague Bearers and wasn't all the way in the middle of his side, but was pretty close to the center. He moves up again and then makes his 3d6 charge into the Blight Kings. And I had taken Conquer, so I just get the battle tactic. I don't kill all the Blight Kings because they're tough, but I get my battle tactic and I get 2 from the board, or 3 from the board because I have 2 of the 3 left that are remaining because I get that objective back. And then because of the sequencing on Feral Foray, any end of turn thing you can score or choose to do in sequence. So you can score from the board and then burn the objective after. So I score 3 from the board and then burn the objective that was in his back right corner. So there's only 2 objectives left on the board. Kragnos is on 1. And then I win the turn roll off going into turn 5. I just take Monstrous Takeover. He's still wailing on Blight Kings. Doesn't get him off the board. But it didn't matter because I just scored enough points at that point to put the game away. Super tight game. Tom's a great guy. We've hung out a lot at these tournaments that I've went to around various places in the United States, and we finally got to play, which was great. I hadn't got to play him yet, and he's going to be really, really good as he plays more. He's already good now, and I don't know who's going to beat him in 6 months, to be honest. I beat him because I had a knowledge advantage on a mission because he just hadn't had the experience there, but it was more of just craftiness. It wasn't because I only outplayed him because of a knowledge deficit. He didn't make bad decisions based on the knowledge that he had, and as he gets more knowledge, he's going to be a monster. So I'm glad I got to beat him because I don't know who's going to beat him here in the next 6 months or after. So be a feather in my cap. But 5-0 with Gitz. I hear it's pretty good, but I did it with Kragnos, so I guess I cheated. Terrible. But really fun. The result is as good as I could have hoped for. I don't see myself taking Gitz out again because I don't think I'm going to be able to do that again, to be honest. And yeah, that's my tournament. Great tournament, ton of fun. Great to see everybody that I got to see. And that's it, dude. I'll quit talking. I'll let y'all go.
So my my last round, also going for an undefeated record here, I end up pulling Joseph Carnwright, who is a fairly new guy on the scene. And this is his first event. And at this point, day 2, he's 4-0. To do that at your first event, even though he has a really good list, it's still an achievement. You should be super proud of where he got coming into day 2. Unfortunately, he is playing a Dracothian Guard and Vanguard Raptor heavy build, which, as we found out in round 4, does not play so well into competent Seraphon player if they're playing Thunder Lizard. But he gave it everything he had. He said before the game, all of his club mates gave him a quick download on everything my list could do. So he's trying to get all that knowledge and use it. We deploy. He decides that he's desperate, so he takes the first turn. And he does his reload. I had positioned well. I forgot that Bastion gave him the redeploy because I was trying to get everything deployed real quick because I didn't want to drag this out for him. But he redeployed the Vanguard Raptor so that they could shoot my Engine of the Gods. And he double shot with Thunderbolt Volley, and after his turn, he had taken it to 13 wounds taken, which in Thunder Lizard it has 14 total, so he wasn't able to kill it through Finest Hour and the ward save. It probably wouldn't have ended up mattering whether he killed it or not because of the army advantage I had. But it definitely felt bad for him that it didn't go down. Coming into my turn, I throw up all my buffs on the Pterodons, and we kind of talked about this afterwards. He knew that they were fast. He didn't understand how fast they were. And on Feral Foray, like Gavin said, you want to start getting 3 from the board as fast as you can. On his turn, he only got 2 from the board because he didn't want to challenge my Arcaso tech that was on the side with the screen. He didn't think he could challenge it on the objective. So I want to get 3 from the board, so I take Conquer on one of his side objectives that he just had a Liberator unit on. And I auto-run the Pterodon, so they move 22 inches, flying over a huge piece of terrain that they were hiding behind. Charge, drop the bombs with a Pterodon Chief, because the Pterodon Chief also ran up. Kill the whole Liberator unit on the charge. And I don't burn the objective, because I want to, like Gavin said in his game, on Feral 4, you really want to burn late, so that you can score 3 from the board as long as you can. So I do that. I take the objective. The Pterodon Chief starts blinking at his general because I got in range with the Fusel. Love the Fusel on the Pterodon Chief. He's a really fast, mobile skink with a plasma pistol, basically. Runs around shooting things and giving the Pterodon bombs a lot more juice. We roll off. He gets the roll off. 2 of his Vanguard Raptors had lived on my turn because I double shot them with the Basilodon, but I wasn't able to finish them. But he wanted to get them to safety so that he could rally them as the course of the game went. So he translocated them to the corner to start rallying. He did end up rallying one that turn. Meanwhile, Bastion and the Fulminators were moving up as fast as they could up the left flank, but they weren't able to get up in range to charge because I had parked my Arcaso tech on the back of that objective. So he gets run 3 with those units and scores 2 from the board because he holds his middle inside. On my turn, I take run 3 and I choose my 3 monsters, which I really like having the... I didn't take run 3 that time. I think I took Broken Ranks on the Fulminators. Juiced up the Engine of the Gods, who at that point fully healed through all the healing in my list. Shot over there, killed all the Liberators, killed all the Fulminators, took Bastion to half health between the Engine and the Arcaso tech and the 30 Skinks, who I had also juiced up. On his side of the board, the Pterodon Riders continued flying to the middle objective. They between the Pterodon Riders and the Chief, they killed his general and took his objective. While 20 Kings backfilled the objective that the Pterodon Riders took turn 1. At that point, all he had left on the board was a half-health Terralion and a half-health Bastion, and then what was left of the Vanguard Raptor unit. So we basically called it and talked it out from there. Because of the positioning of where everything was, I was able to score a lot of monster points between Ferocious Advance and Bring It Down and whatnot, and kill his monster. So due to all those things and just the army advantage I had, I was able to take the board really fast, and it ended up being a blowout. It's not to say that Joseph isn't a really good player. He obviously played his way 4-0 on his first tournament, which means he knows what he's doing. It just really came down to 2 knowledgeable players playing, and one had a pretty huge army advantage, which allowed me to score a lot of points and jump the other undefeated players for the tournament win. But that was my tournament. Ended up being a lot of fun. Good game, Joseph. I see you're in the chat. Sorry that it went that way, but sometimes those are the breaks.
Them's the breaks, kiddo. No.
You can ask Brian. My first game with Brian was very similar.
Yeah, we laughed when we looked at Army List and the mission. We were like, I walked up and he's like, you can't win this game, right? And I'm like, yep, but I got 20 beer tickets in my pocket, so let's do this.
But yeah,
so
I know I saw you talking in your Discord at some point that you felt bad you couldn't give me a better game. Don't feel bad at all. It had nothing to do with the game you played and how that played out. It just really came down to I knew what I was doing with the army, and the army had a good advantage in that mission and that matchup. I mean, if I play anyone in the world playing Vanguard Raptors in that Seraphon list, I probably win 95% of the time on that mission in that matchup. So it wasn't that you gave me a bad game or anything. You gave me a great game. It's just comes down to what those things I said before. And so you don't need to feel bad about that. Be proud that you went 4-0 as your first event.
4-0 first event. That's solid. Like, all right, Evan, you want to go or you want me to go?
Yeah, I could do mine real quick. My fifth game was actually against David. When I saw the matchup, I was actually pretty happy because I fight Lumineth all the time, and this was one list that is a lot of rend negation through Alorith, which is perfectly fine because I barely do any rend. So and he had tech lists, but he didn't have spell portals, so I just knew this guy was being super casual with his list because he can't do anything for the most part. Unless you're within 18, so that's kind of the secret. And he had 15 Stone Guard, a Wind Spirit, and the Mountain Spirit, or the oh god, what's his name? Avalnor. And so that was it. I mean, really, his list was very small, low wounds, didn't have any threat range outside of 18, and it was kind of slow too outside of getting into it. So we started playing, and I realized really quickly that the game was not going my way. It started off a little slow because I would run into something, I'd pick a battle tactic, and I would because he went first, which I thought was a little surprising, but he moved up and with Avalnor killed 10 of my Savage Orcs for the broken ranks, but it was right within 12 inches of my Wargog, and so I just ended up staring him off the board turn 1. And then, so Avalnor's gone, so the whole -1 to hit is gone. And he burned my objective turn 1 too. I was like, okay, so that gives me a little bit of... I'm sorry, he couldn't burn the objective because it was turn 1. So then I was able to take that back, but I was really cautious because that Wind Spirit, I have no way of catching up. So unless he puts it within 12 of a Wargog, I have to just keep all the back objectives. So I move up, but he left Techless exposed, and I was like, okay, here's my chance to go beat on Techless, because if I can remove him, the game's probably just over. And so I buff up the Rogue Idol, throw him into Techless, and I roar at Techless so he can only use the Aether Quartz. So with my -2 rend, because he doesn't get the benefit of Geometrica, he, I think, was saving on 5s, and he had no ward save because of Dragfoot. So I throw my attacks in there. I get 1 fist attack through, which he fails, so I do 4 damage, and then I get 7 of the stomps through, and he saves all but 1 on a 5-up. So that really, really hurt. I didn't expect to kill him, but I expected to bracket him to the point that he wasn't going to really do anything, and then I could just finish him off, or he'd have to retreat and do something on his turn. Plus, it was the bottom of the turn, so I was hoping for the roll-off. And only doing 4 damage to him, and then he ended up doing 8 damage to my Rogue Idol through my ward save and everything. And I was like, wow, that's really... because he spiked all his damage. And then we went to the roll-off, he won it, brought the Rogue Idol down to 1 wound left, and ended up scoring another battle tactic. But he was losing a lot of his stuff. He didn't really have much left on the board. and my pigs had flanked his side. I ended up so on my turn, I charge his shrine that has his general in it, which is the mountains, the wind or the stone mage. I forgot to mention that. That was his general. And I ended up getting like 22 attacks through on the stone mage. Once again, he's got the +1 save, but no ward save. So on a 4-up, about 11 damage would go through. And he ended up saving 18 of them. It only took like 4 damage or something like that. And I was just like, okay. And then I retreated the rogue idol back onto one of his other objectives and burned it because I knew that I was probably going to lose it that next turn. And I was like, I just need to win the roll off and I can still do it. He won it again, killed the rogue idol, started messing with my pigs, and then his stone guard got into a unit that I had in the center, and he just kept using the wind spirit to stop me from piling in and then just shooting me. And so we were tied, and he won the roll off again. And I literally everything that I did, I picked broken ranks, I picked bring it down, slay the warlord. I failed almost all of them because I could not. I would do average damage, and then he would save almost all but like maybe 1 or 2, and it just dice rolls they were really good. And so I was like, okay, well, and I was really frustrated. So if you do watch, like, I wasn't upset with you personally. I've never had a game so dependent on dice rolls when I've prepared myself to fight Lumineth, and I fight a list like that where you only did Searing Light 1 time throughout the entire game. So it was really rough for me personally, especially going 3-0 day 1, but still a good game. So thank you for giving me that experience. So that's it.
All right. So I had one of our new up and coming Harambe's heroes, Ben Riddle, and it was a Seraphon matchup, which I had been practicing a lot with Zach leading up to this. Yeah, I think we played like 3 games leading up to this, and then I'm familiar with Seraphon. I've played Andrew a whole lot, so I kind of knew what I was getting into. But his was a little bit different. He had a big chunk of his damage was stacked on salamanders. So I was like, okay, well, it's not a big chunk. It's not like double Bastiladon. I can deal with units of salamanders. So I basically deployed where the only thing he had in range for his Bastiladons was Noblars, and also where if he gave me the turn, I could come up and blast those salamanders off the board. He decided to go first. I was a 15 drop, by the way. He was a 1 drop, or maybe 2, maybe whatever it was. He outdropped me, and then he chose to go first.
15.
Yeah,
1-5.
1-5. It doesn't matter when you play Underguts; they're that good.
Yeah, true.
So he shot me, shot some Noblars. And then did, Comet's Call, basically. So I think I lost like 7 Noblars, maybe 7 from, whatever it was. I lost a handful of Noblars. Didn't care. And then I moved up. I shot. He came forward with a unit of salamanders and hugged a terrain piece, which was a decent play. He came forward with them. And hugged that terrain piece so he could get his ward save. Nobody else in the tournament got to use terrain rules this weekend unless you had a white dwarf that said you got to use it. But no, I'm just kidding. Just going back to our last podcast. No, but so he hugged that. I shot that unit of salamanders off the board. On the right side, I went ahead and moved up one of my 4-man unit of lead belchers, moved him up. And dropped Prothcorn on the back corner on that, going after that same objective to pressure that objective. He had like 20 skinks on it. So, and then everything else was central and to the left. So I felt like I could isolate that side of the board, and I could take that objective and then force his engine and Skink Chief to go that way instead of slamming into my front line. That would just give me more time to start chipping things off the board. So I was in position there. That if I won the turn roll off, I had a good shot at taking that objective away. And I moved up, and then I took the. So he's got one unit of salamanders dead, and that was kind of my main goal on that mission was to kill that unit of salamanders. And then I win the roll off, and he had brought his unit of salamanders out of the Realm Shaper engine. So he had them in there on turn one, but when he took the turn, he brought them out. So I moved everything up in range to shoot that other unit of salamanders. So I got the other unit of salamanders off the board. I think I got a couple of wounds on the engine, and I made the charge. And then I shot the skinks on the right side and made the charge and killed the skinks down to 4 guys. And he was like, "Well, I hold the objective." I'm like, "Well, no, you don't." He's like, "Well, you only got 4 ogres there." I was like, "Yeah, but that's 10 dudes, dude." Like, I hated to do it to him, but he didn't know that ogres counted for 2 models on objectives. So I took that objective, and instead of keeping that unit alive, he just let it run on battle shot. Because at that point I had Hrothgorn and 4 ogres there, and they weren't going to last. It wasn't. He had a whole turn go with his CP. So that turn he moved his engine, his Bastiladon, and his Skink Chief to the middle. He was like, "Well, to hell with it. I'm going to YOLO now. I think if I don't do something big in the next turn, get the roll off, then you probably already got this in the bag." I went ahead and burned the objective. I know, holding the board and all of that, but that army can flip your ass on a dime real quick. It can summon in Saurus to come take that objective back, and I'm not going to screw with it. I felt like if I left the objective on the board, it would pull in that way, and then if I burned it, he would come to the middle, and then I could just sweep across and go grab all of his objectives every turn. And then he went with the engine, just as I expected. As every Seraphon player with an engine, every time they need to summon Tensaurus, they summon Tensaurus. So he summoned Tensaurus, stuck him on his mid-objective, and ran everything forward. He chose Conquer on my left objective, but he wasn't able to get, because of where I had my Noblars, he was able to come up and then be able to make a charge. So he came up and he got within range of the Noblars, so I redeployed them and got like all 14 of them on the objective. And so he shot my stuff in the middle and then failed his charge with his Skink Chief on Pterodon, but he made it in with the Bastiladon and he made it in with the engine. So that was still a big chunk of damage against ogres, So he got my 8-man unit down to 4 guys, and I didn't think he did anything to the other. So he killed some Noblars. He got the 8-man unit down to 4 guys, and I ended up putting like 8 wounds on the engine, and I think I had 3 wounds on the Bastiladon. So it was, and then the the skinks over here charged. They shot at. He forgot about cover. He just forgot. So he shot at Black Powder, who was also holding that left side objective that he wanted to conquer. So he shot Black Powder instead of the Noblars. So he shot Black Powder, didn't get anything, maybe a damage or something through with the skinks, and then charged the skinks into the Noblars and only killed like 4 of them. And then the Noblars beat the piss out of the skinks and held the objective. So so he failed his battle tactic that turn, and then I still held board at that point. And because at this point I'm still holding, I still have hold 1, hold 2, hold more at this point, and all of that stuff because he couldn't get that objective off of me. And then we rolled for priority. I won the priority roll, and we kind of just called it there because with the Bastiladon being on 3 wounds and the engine being pretty, what saved my ass on that one was he failed with the chief. If he had made it in with the Skink Chief on Stegodon, we're probably looking at a whole other game there. I probably have a lot less ogres sitting in the middle. But I had all 4 cannons there, and I had 8 ogres still in the middle, and 4 ogres and Hrothgorn about to sweep across onto his center objective. and we kind of called it there. I think had he won the roll-off, I think he probably takes the game, maybe. I mean, with the amount of damage that he had right there, he could have cleared everything and then probably still had time to swing back and maybe get back on his back objective and keep me from burning that. Maybe not. It may not have actually came down to that. Who knows? But called it right there because he probably, with me winning the roll-off, he loses the Stegonon or the engine. He probably loses with the mortal wounds I'm capable of putting out in a turn. He probably loses that Bastiladon too. And then at that point, he's got a Skink Chief and a Slan left on the board. So we just kind of talked it out from there. What battle tactics he could get, what we could get, but I know he played a great tournament. He was like stoked. He had a good one. He had a good LVO, and then he came here, and he's just like, every time I bump into one of you Harambes, I get another one in the loss bracket just from standing near you for too long. But he's one of those guys, one of those young guys that's getting a lot better too. It's just a matter of time before he comes in here and gets him a good 4-1, 5-0. It's just a matter of time. He's learning really quick, and he's picking it up, and he pays attention. I just won the priority role that I needed to win, is what it came down to. Underguts can weather Seraphon damage pretty well for a turn or two, and if I get the priority rolls and the objective scoring that I need, then I can keep it. Every game I've ever played with him, it's a game until it isn't. Against Seraphon, because Usually, I can't take their damage dealing tools away, and they can take mine away fairly easily. So, but ended 4-1, had a great weekend. I thought for a second, I was looking at the scores, and I thought for a second, like, maybe I get Best of Destruction, maybe, and I didn't see the other tables that were still playing, and then Marco finished his game, and then Noah finished his game, and both of them jumped over me, but still, after, losing that first game and then coming back and getting all 4 wins in the weekend, it was pretty satisfying little weekend. Ending 4-1 for the second GT in a row with Underguts was pretty solid.
Underguts OP confirmed, dude.
Oh yeah.
For sure. No, it was a fun weekend. It had been long enough since we had played like a big proper Texas tournament that I had started to miss it. I don't know if y'all had.
Oh yeah,
I've been in Austin since November, so it was a good little while.
It was really nice seeing everybody again. That was my favorite part of the weekend, is just knowing everybody at the event and being able to walk around and see Dan, see everybody.
Getting that ring around 4 is pretty nice too.
Dan Wad for me.
Oh yeah, easy, dude.
That's all right. But we already got Slambo's already sold out. In like 13 minutes. So sorry. All of the Texas tournaments are off the docket for the rest of our season. But next year, I'm going to try and convince everybody to do bigger tournaments, because I think there's a demand for it. And our stuff's always really fun. But yeah, great weekend. Any closing thoughts from anybody?
I thought it was a great weekend. Yeah, it was a good time. I really appreciate Matt Taylor and Goat and Brian Harrington, all these guys that gave up their personal time to come out and do this. So really appreciate all that. All the painted armies that were out there looked awesome, except Kyle's. He got lucky with that giant display board. No,
everybody's trying to build a ladder to Kit's skill.
Yeah,
the display board so tall that it actually bridges the gap between his skill and Kit's for sure.
No, there was some beautiful
not
armies
quite tall enough, Kyle. You got to have another couple feet. Maybe next time. Great armies, though. Like, beautiful armies.
No, it was a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in Slambo. And I won't punish you again with Underguts. I'll bring something easier. I'm probably going to bring Soul Blight. I'll bring something nice.
Yeah. Nice army. Yeah, for sure. But
yeah.
Besides our the one guy in here that played the meta army, let me just pretend like he's not here for a second. I think it did prove that you can win with whatever you want. This is what I took away from the weekend. Like, there's been a lot of chatter about how the death of Age of Sigmar is nigh, because you can't win with, but the only way you can win is with, one or two armies. I think that this weekend, this tournament proved that wrong. So play what you want to play. Play it well.
I think
even Jonathan Slesius, he went 5-0 with OBR. Action from the dead.
Yeah, I think Vince just had a video as well at the same time talking about how is the AOS meta broken. The same time and same video as this stream. So
dude, what that's some clickbait, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's some premium clickbait.
It's almost perfect.
Yeah, it's actually pretty healthy in my opinion.
As far as like relative to what it's been in the past, I think
it's more healthy than it's ever been. Yeah, there's some really strong things out there.
I could not have done any of those armies that I went 4-1 with since we did 3.0. There's no way that this would have lasted even a turn in 2.0.
Oh yeah, people are forgetting. Like, I guess we weren't really out there during 2.0, like out in the world, but the nastiness we were doing in 2.0. Like, we were taking the game over by turn 2. Like, it was over for you. Like, it's like, I'm going to be in your deployment zone, turn 1. I'm going to do 1,000,000 damage to you before you ever move a model. And then if I win the turn roll off on turn 2, you will usually handshake it right there. Like, not just me, just all of us. We were running, like, Gavin with the Terror guys, Zach. We played race cars. That was the running joke. It was like, ever since I went to Texas Masters 2019 and what happened, after that I came out of there with a whole new idea of what Age of Sigmar was. And after that, it was a streak there where, granted, Gavin wasn't at that tournament and Zach weren't at those tournaments, but it was like every local I went to, I won. It was like crazy. I was smashing. I was in everyone else's face turn 1. It was pretty nuts.
2020 Texas Masters.
2020. And Gavin's going to Prague, so I might go there and back to back.
Oh, is that the same? Is that the same weekend?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, you gotta find another doubles. Oh, Slambo. Okay, I thought it was Masters.
Yeah. I'll probably be at Masters for sure, playing the doubles tournament, much to the dismay of all the people who want to see me playing the singles event. Terrible. Don't have such a fun tournament next to it, dude. Sorry.
Well, I do have one more quick shout out. I have a tournament. If you're local here, I have a tournament going on at Gold Mine Games down in Rosenberg, Texas. Richmond, Rosenberg, whatever. It's down there on you drive on 99 and
Games,
yeah, you drive on 99 until it runs out. Like, and then you make a left. Then there's Gold Mine.
You make a right.
That's some directions by Brian Lofton. You drive on 99 till it runs out, and you make a left.
If it looks like you're getting lost, you're getting close.
Yeah, but we got a tournament. We got a local coming up. I think we already got 14 people signed up. I know we can fit 20 in that room that he gives us, and if more people sign up, we can even expand further past that. So, looking forward to everybody who comes out for that. It'll be a fun one. I'm bringing a fun little ringer list if I have to play. See if Blades of Corn really are 28% win rate.
Also, we have officially hit 200 subscribers, believe it or not.
Yeah, I synced it, dude.
Oh, wow.
Hilarious. There's 200 people
200 fools.
Watch us fucking whinge and complain about Age of Sigmar. Speaking of, if you enjoy our content, hit like and subscribe on the video, please. It really helps us out a lot with the algorithm. And we'd really appreciate it if you did that.
Real gluttons for punishment.
If you like the shit tier content, dude, we make a lot of it. So
yeah, we're like bottom of the barrel. We had all these other YouTubers in here, and AOS Coach, Honest Wargamer were in here re-rolling ones. Way better than us at doing this. Caleb, yes, they've been doing this better than us for a long time. It's honestly a huge compliment, and I think everyone who's been in here, man, I really do. It's awesome to have you guys in here with us.
Yep.
Yeah,
I might talk a lot of shit on Discord, but I actually pretty decent guy in person.
Dude, look, dude, Captain America's in here too. Mr. Jeremy Bessieri.
Oh,
Send your applications to Jeremy for Team America next year. He's always looking for new people. We've definitely run out of things.
I'm over here, Jeremy. I'm over here. If you, I'm not going to send you an application. You're going to draft me, dog.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. It's always a fun time. So,
Thanks, guys.
yeah, y'all be good. I think we're gonna
You stole
Peace,
that.
guys.
We can't. That's copyrighted.
awkwardly cut the stream off. Yeah.
Professional.